Our lives. Sir,
All set.
Doug?
Yes.
You want to come up and present your project?
Where do I stand? Right here?
Just right there, any place where.
So I did submit a couple of pictures. Basically, we just wanted to build a new garage, tear down the existing garage and build a new garage, same footprint. Go up a little higher to accommodate attic trusses and have an attic, so steeper peaked roof. The siding will be similar to the house, our house, and the shingles and pretty much the same design kind of.
Okay, so it's gonna be wood clapboard siding.
We're gonna use what we used on our house, which is the cement board siding, clapboard siding.
Like we call it. So
It
that
was
was like
hardy, yeah,
same thing as on the home.
yes, right.
Questions? Pat?
Welcome, Jesse.
Doug Gable, he's presenting.
In the garage.
Yes.
Doug, anything in the village, any demolition in the village of significance requires a period of public hearing.
Okay.
And so it's great to have the full plan, and this is an opportunity for the board to ask you for any further information and may wish to give it a final approval.
Okay, sure.
But tonight we would pretty much set the date for the public hearing for the next meeting.
Okay, which is what,
It's going to be the second Tuesday in May.
second Tuesday, okay.
And so for something like this, generally, I wouldn't expect to hear anything back from it, but it's in the village.
Okay, is that something that I have to be present for, or?
It's also always helpful when the applicant is here to present their application, in case there are questions. For this application, would the board want to see more information on anything that's presented here? So that he's got a full 30 days to put that together. Maybe feel comfortable with.
You have it, Jesse, or you need to see it?
I've seen it. I'm actually going, I saw the application.
Looks like you've got a stone water table kind of feature on the. Is that going to be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I think probably some of the details on the garage door, is it going to be an aluminum
It's gonna be, yes, the aluminum door, yeah.
accordion, no lights or
Possibly, I didn't draw those on there, but possibly wood lights, yes.
and it's not necessarily to draw them on there if you have a sample sheet from the garage door company or something like that when you do make the decision.
Yeah, you could provide that for sure.
Useful to
Yeah.
help these folks make decisions about it. And then I guess also any sort of details on that
Yeah,
gable window.
right. That window will either be a double hung window or a casement window to match the front of our house. Has a big peak in the front with the casement window in the front, so we wanted to maybe make that look a little similar. Yeah,
Sounds
we haven't
good.
decided on that completely yet.
Between now and the next meeting, if you had any further information about those details, send them to the zoning.
Okay.
At Cooperstown and y.org and make sure that everybody has them in time.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right.
And public hearing, neighbors may be interested in schedule, how long it will take for the demolition to.
Okay. My neighbor is actually building the garage. So no complaints.
The conversation itself.
Yeah, and I don't anticipate any other problems with any of the other neighbors. Yeah, I've spoken to them about it and no problems.
It's basically on the same footprint, isn't it?
It'll be on the same footprint, yeah, same dimensions,
Yeah.
except taller.
It will go with the house as it's been remodeled.
Yes, exactly.
I had no idea there was so many more emails in here before. I'm sorry, I'm getting to.
Sounds good. We'll go ahead and set a public hearing for you. And if you have any other details between now.
Okay.
Just go ahead and share. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we don't need anything else till public hearing.
Correct.
64 Chestnut Street.
Oh, here.
I'm here for the Landmark Inn, with Gina's Construction. What John Walker, the owner, is proposing to do is take the side door, which is currently two 24-inch, very small doors. It's a double door right now. And he's asking us to build one larger one for him. So it'll be in the same opening of the building. We're not changing any of that. We're just taking two doors and making one larger one for him, make it easier for people to get in and out with their suitcases. It'll match what's there now in terms of like style and color, which I know you guys don't care as much about, but it'll be Spanish cedar painted the same color that it is now.
And it will have the same light configuration, just as a single panel rather than. two
Exactly.
panels.
We're keeping the same transom above, which matches the rest of the house. And we're actually doing the exact same design as the front door, so it'll pull it right around to the side.
Any questions? Pat? Dave? No. No?
No.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that H Power provide a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 64 Chestnut Street. Under criteria 2A, 2B, 3A, and 3C.
I'll second the motion.
Yeah, second.
Oh, sorry. Oh, right.
Yeah. All in favor?
All set. Thank you so much.
very much.
Yeah.
I'm here for my mother, Margaret, because she is out of town at this time. We're requesting a chain link fence across the opening of our property at 81 Able Road. It has been very much a hot spot in the village with everything going on, and we've had people parking on, I pulled up there the other day and there were at least 3 cars parked right in front of the garage.
This is a 4-foot fence?
48 inches, yes.
Yeah, 4-foot fence, and the posts don't exceed 48, or is it?
I do not know the answer to that
Okay.
question.
Reason I ask is because if the posts are 48 or less, then technically, I think we were allowed to put the fence in without asking permission.
Okay, we were advised to
Yeah, to come and say. If
come and see you guys, so we'll, Mom will follow the rules.
I think, like you said, it's been a hot spot.
It's been a hot spot. It's been, you know, and as more construction happens, unfortunately, people who want to walk the trails up there would be parking more and more on that property.
All right. Go to that cooperating.
I guess we really don't need
I'd like to have a further discussion about that. I want to be directed to the part of the code that omits things that are 48 inches or lower from our review.
Okay.
But we don't have to have that now, and I'd be comfortable jumping through all the hoops on this, just.
All right.
Yeah, location, I think
Microscope.
you're probably right.
That's all right for everybody.
Okay. Dave, do you have any questions?
I don't.
Pat?
I don't.
Bernie, I don't mean to leave you out of this, but you're an alternate, so. I don't feel like that. Me too. I have no questions. I understand.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, someone want to make a motion?
I know you're looking at me. Conservation, thank you. VH Barb, has reviewed this application and feels it is appropriate, under, it's, compatible, it's actually. It's a new edition, so it's compatible under, 4I, I think. And maybe 4J, no, but not J, it's just, new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with size, scale, materials, features and proportions. Yes, I think that works. So, 4I, I think, answers the questions. It's certainly not historic, but we understand why you want to do it. Does that work?
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Hi.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
We have someone here for 50 Walnut.
No, I don't see Michael here yet. I did confirm that he was planning to attend, so.
Okay, Mr. Curley.
Thank you for your time. Happy Easter, everyone. Mark Curley for 40 Lake. Off feedback we got from the meeting on February, we reevaluated the stuff we're doing. It's window replacement of all of the existing windows at 40 Lake. I don't know if you guys have this. Yeah.
So if anybody didn't get a chance to look at the.
Everything is, yeah, get a chance to look at it. Yeah, I can do it. Thank you very much. If you have a copy, great. If not. Oh, awesome. Anybody else? Great. So the oldest picture I could find, as noted in the, it's colonial. I agree that's 6/6 on the top. It looks like 6/9 at the bottom, or at least as far as I could tell. I defer to anybody who says it's different. And the product, we've changed the product. If we go all the way to the back, sorry, not the back, page. We're going with Anderson 400 Woodwrights 4060 configuration for the bottom all the way around, all the windows facing the street or visible from the street. So they have the fully, I guess it's called full true divided light. Thank you for the clarification. I also call them grills. I know there's called something else.
You don't actually call them grills here in the picture, so
Yeah.
surprising.
But they're fully attached. It's not added on. You could get them off with a hammer, I guess, if you really wanted to use a hammer on it. But those will be all the sides facing around from the, if you look at the house on the right-hand side, what they call the apartment, and then all the way around the front, and then on the top, all the way around. We're going with Anderson 100s, which are again, the fully divided light on the next page. The difference is that the 6/9 configuration is a custom build, but they only made it in a 9/6, which I thought was a little odd, but so the 6/9 is the wood ray. And on the back of the house, deferring to you guys, of course, but the back of the house is a giant, 35-foot window on both sides. So the back of the house, as Jackson come see it, the back of the house, won't be the full divided light on the back of the house facing the lake where anybody can see it. It'll be simulated divided light with the 6/9 and then the 6/6 up top.
That's a cost saving measure.
Partially, and also to clean it for junk, it's a combination of the two. The Woodwrights are significantly more expensive, but we think they fit the mold of the ask. They are wood encased in the Fibrex, the proprietary material, so they'll hold up to the winter and they'll hold up to the lake. And I did want to point out again, in deference to the previous owner, there is some safety concerns I have. There's chunks of the window in the back are falling off the house. So I would, which I asked Jackson to look at, and a few more came. I guess there was a windstorm a couple of weeks ago. some more stuff fell off. So I need to maintain the integrity of the house. If not, if there's more discussion needed in the front of the house, I'm happy to have it. But I have to make the house safe.
Okay. Jesse? Questions? David? No, I'm good.
And thank you for the feedback from the previous meeting. But
Do we have a motion? Or do we need a motion or change order? I don't think we ever.
No, we denied the initial.
Okay.
wrong material.
I'll give it a shot. So I move that H Park provide a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 40 Lake Street. Under criteria 2C, 3A, B, C, and I think E, and 5.
A second.
All in favor? So carried.
Thank you very much. 30 seconds, and then you got a full plate. One of the next part I'm going to do is restore the fence across the top of I showed up early to make sure to listen to the fence. We're going to put wrought iron back across the top of the house, so where
The stone.
the stone here, this is was an old wood thing.
Yeah, it's a good sense.
Yeah, which has been gone for, I don't know how long, but we're planning on putting wrought iron across the top. Is there any height or size requirements for that? I couldn't find
Safety purposes, I think there is.
I called the county and they said only about for swimming pools. They care about swimming pools. I'm good with the safety thing. It's gonna be high. I'm planning on having it 44 inches tall, but I just wasn't sure before we.
And it's right at a transition in the grade. Would we assess the height of the fence from the property side of the fence or from the sidewalk side of the fence?
Good question. From the sidewalk side, it's pretty high.
Yeah, because it slopes up, because you start out at when it's taller than I am, and then it's like, at the ends up like that. I'll put a proposal for it. I just like to try and prepare appropriately.
Yep, and I can share with you the parts.
Awesome, thank you. I don't want to waste you guys' time, but thank you very much. All right. Thank you all very much. Anything else? Be well, sir. Thank you, sir.
Stacking Corporation. Hello.
Well,
You want to present your project?
I would, yep, so we're looking at 20 Chestnut Street, Jordan Cottage there on Chestnut in Maine, and we're going to replace the porch on that, which is in relatively poor condition. And the reason that we're here this evening is to propose that we use these composite materials instead of wood. The columns and the railings will be painted white. The porch board material, I don't know if you have a chance to look at this.
I think the board is generally familiar with.
Yeah. So it's the Aerotos. Again, these are all materials from Bruce Hall that we would use that would be rock resistant or impervious. And otherwise, everything else will remain same dimensions, orientation, colors, and all that. It really is just a change of materials.
You're not doing the roof structure, are you?
No, that's actually in quite good shape.
So it's just from the soffit on that.
Yes.
Miller will remain.
They'll be replaced, but they'll be stone on the outside.
The materials of the railing are pretty obvious. What is your column material?
This again, it's a composite. Oh, down to you. That is.
And is this a formed column or is it?
Yeah, so it'll have the same shape with a little bit of taper at the top, just as the existing columns do, it'll be the same diameter. Yep.
Pleased to hear that.
I remember this porch being replaced not very long ago.
It was
Yeah.
repaired, it wasn't replaced. They replaced sections of it
And I know that the bases of the columns are replaced with something.
with pieced together.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that, I mean,
It was my project, I remember.
yeah, most columns of that ilk, do tend to get repaired in that way. The porch is not as old as the house. The porch is probably early 20th century, although if I pulled up the Sanborns, I might be able to really paint it for you. But I am sorry to see a corner landmark property moved to non-traditional materials. I'm uncomfortable with that. Repair is an ethic that I think we're trying to encourage with this board rather than moving to products that are made with oil and are not sustainable. So for what it's worth, that's kind of my feeling on that one. I understand the wish to reduce some of your care costs, but
Yeah, it's partly hair costs and partly it's just, there aren't materials that are quality that you can put in there. You know, you can put in porch boards that are made from exotic hardwoods that have been shipped from Africa and they will hold up better, but if you're putting 5/4 fir in there, the what's in there is not very many years old and it's
what about
in poor shape.
I know my stuff down towards the bottom is all cypress, which is sourced at Whiten, and cypress does pretty well.
It
Just as
does
a thought.
better. Yep.
But as I say, I'm just, there are, if you walk around town and look at porches that are 100 years old, which is probably about the age of that porch, maybe a little bit more or less. Most of them do have that kind of a repair. It's just sort of part of the ethic of maintaining a porch like that. So.
This is a pretty technical question, but do you know where the taper that you're referring to in the column begins? Height-wise?
It's, I believe, let's see. Not off the top of my head, I don't, but it's in the photocopy pages that I included with the permit.
Does it match?
Yes.
Yeah.
It'll match that.
Yeah, it's called entasis or antisis. It's called entasis or antisis, depending on.
That's been teaching me that word.
Okay, yes.
Well,
And those columns are a little peculiar because they are so squat for a Tuscan column. The proportions are actually not specified proportions in historic, in building manuals. They're actually too heavy, too short. They're actually a Doric proportion with a Tuscan column. They're very idiosyncratic. They're kind of cool.
well, I'm assuming you just described and tasted.
Yes,
Okay, so I don't know what our position is on it, but these appear to be a straight taper from base to cap.
No,
Which, the new
it's
ones?
not that. It indicates there where the taper starts.
Right. Halfway down.
Okay, yeah,
Straight
you're
in.
right. The drawing appears to be pretty straight line.
Yeah, they don't.
Right.
So I don't think it's a better position, but or something to deal with. But in cases is this as opposed to
yes, absolutely.
do we care?
Yes, we do care. Absolutely. They should match. If you're gonna replace them.
Are you going to replace them all?
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, all four. Yeah, they're not, I mean, I have seen people reproduce them with this kind of material, but yeah, they should not do this. It is a gentle curve. And as I said to Jackson, they're unusual columns. They have Doric proportions rather than Tuscan proportions, even though they're Tuscan columns. Based on their capitals, but they're very short, they're very squat, and they're very heavy for their height. They're very idiosyncratic columns. I don't know, I mean, it'd be interesting to know, someone may actually have records about who designed that porch, because the porch is not as old as the building. But anyway, I would prefer to see us repair again, as we have repaired in the past. Rather than replace.
But the question that I have is it a concern of the village that the entasis isn't
Well,
really entasis?
it is antasis, yes.
No, I said, if it goes like this, it's not.
Right, but that's not what's there right now. Are you saying that that's not what's there, or you're saying it is what's
I
there?
don't know what's there right now.
That's why we go around. But
I think it's probably difficult to tell from the brochure where the CAD drawing just snapped everything to straight lines, whereas you can see in the photographs that were shared by.
yeah, the columns that are there now,
These are the current ones.
Yeah.
That's.
Have you seen it?
I've gone and looked at the building.
And so. It appears that the taper actually started very high up.
That's what I'm saying. They're peculiar. They have a Doric proportion with a Tuscan column, with a Tuscan capital.
That was like, that's everything, but.
So it should be replicated if they're going to be replaced, but I prefer to see them repaired personally. How long ago were they repaired, Dick?
Columns?
Yeah.
Phillips did
I know,
probably
and they did all the sash replacement, replaced all the,
2010 maybe.
is that recent? Okay. I'm guessing they used something fairly light for the lumber.
Along with the renovation of the interior.
Mm.
All I can do is answer questions. I can't get into the environment.
Liz, where are you, Liz?
But do you know if they offer a column that matches what is there?
I think you'd have to do it as a custom.
So is this just representative of is this drawing just for illustration? Yes. So I think the concern is that the taper just begins here and then is steady all the way up, rather than having that kind of soft turn top fifth of it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to see, one of these dimensions is done where that's going to begin.
Okay, right.
Does it not match that? Maybe it's. Maybe else.
It's okay. No.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Those are kind of the time of the capitals.
Right.
Yeah, I know there is something to dimension. But
Be something in here would need to be.
yes, that does not do this. There's no dimension.
And it's.
It's a hard one.
I understand. I think the concern, other than the concern raised regarding the material itself, the other concern is just that the curvature of the replacement matches the curvature of what is there.
Right.
And it's hard to tell that from the materials provided. Patrick, you're saying that though that this has been looked at and that is the goal of the project is to match.
The goal of the project is to match that,
Because
I don't
really see
whether it
anything
will
in
be
that
exactly.
Showing that curve starting right there, and the fear is that you'll get halfway up the column and then it'll just be a gentle and linear taper.
Yes. Let's see. Wow. I have to burn that one. But I can-
I have a question. Does anybody know if the taper, the top half of a column does actually do the same job that traditional adhesive provides? In other words,
It's visual.
the idea is to keep it from appearing like it's going like that.
Right.
Okay,
It's
so does going like that do the same job? Because if it does, then
I don't think it would. You'd have to create one and see what you thought. For me, that's not the question. For me, the question is, this is a corner property. It's the most prominent corner in the village. And it should be restored instead of replaced with non-historic materials. I don't think it's compatible.
are the existing ones historic? The existing columns?
Probably, it's early 20th century. The design is early 20th century. It's not as old as the house, but that doesn't, but we don't encourage stripping a house back to, or any building back to its absolute quote original appearance. Well, I mean, it's the story of it's the story of the building. The building had a porch added like many houses in the village in the early 20th century. When you start looking at the Sanborn maps, you can see there's an eruption of porches throughout the village that occurs between 1900 and 1925. And it has to do with, it actually starts earlier than that, with other kinds of porches, but porches become very popular in the last quarter of the 19th century. And people add porches to older houses because they want a porch, because everybody else has a porch. Right? And so that's really a history of the building and of the neighborhood that is important. It tells us why places look the way they do now. As Tony's got a porch that was added. That front porch on his house is not original design, but it's pretty old. It goes back to the early 20th century. And again, this is a neoclassical or colonial revival or Georgian revival, you can call it a bunch of different things. It's all kind of the same idea. It's all classical revival, and it was a popular way to update a house and to make it livable in that period because people wanted a porch to sit out on in the evenings. Wave to people as they went.
The existing columns failing in any way, or is this to simplify maintenance further on down?
No.
And it's a nice design.
Right. Yeah.
No,
No, definitely not. That's too heavy on the feet.
yeah, but I was thinking about that. By analogy, when we've had applicants with good windows that are no longer functional, come in and propose panel replacement. my sense, my memory is that we always strongly encourage them to look into restoring
Repair and rehab.
and maintaining their wood. So I struggle with that, but admonition when it comes to here, and as Jesse says, the opportunity, I guess, to restore versus replace.
Model the ethic, I think is what I would say.
If we make that argument when people come to us with wood windows, it seems like for consistency and particularly because of such a conspicuous.
I heard you're concerned with the other end.
See how it's handling her and.
Just in time.
Yeah, you have to repeat it. I think it's better.
So if someone wants to. Tell me why that analogy falls through, is it for now, then. I'd be delighted to hear it.
We are on the Jordan Cottage, thinking on porch replacement, and I have spoken saying that I believe that the columns should be repaired again. In kind rather than replaced wholesale with. Material that is being presented over here, and we're discussing whether. This is a similar question to the notion of maintaining and restoring urban sash as an example. But somehow this is different. There's been some discussion about the unusual proportions and sizes of columns that currently exist, which are idiosyncratic. But they are part of the way that porch was built when it was added to the house. Because it was a cottage. This will be updated. Okay.
So one suggestion I throw out there, I think is if it is difficult or possible to match the exact dimensions of those columns, I think we certainly can match the bottom dimension, which is simply rounded, not tapered, and that's the portion that's needs to be replaced. It's rotten through, and so that's something that we could easily do. How successful it would be in wood versus doing with composite, I don't know, but certainly either way, I think it'd be possible to replace the bottom barrel, which is not tapered, and replace that straight portion of the columns and keep the upper wooden portion that's unique. Ensure that obviously you have to maintain the dimensions, it would be maintaining the material.
So the bottom of the columns that were replaced previously,
I'm sorry.
they were pieced together previously.
Okay.
Yeah, there's at least one repair, but as I say, lots of columns in the village are repaired repeatedly. And generally speaking, when it happens, you end up going up another 2 or 3 inches in order to be sure that you've got good material. But I've watched a lot of people do this job throughout the village, throughout the years.
Dave, do you know how long ago the columns were replaced at the bottom, the portion?
I guess about 2010, about 15 years ago, a little bit more.
The decking replacement too?
Instead.
I have less trouble with replacing a deck.
But they're failing because they're wood.
They are
wood based,
wrong.
yeah.
Well,
Wood columns.
and the problem, it's an inherent problem with columns that are wood, that are resting on a wood deck that project out and it's moist. And so they do end up having to be repaired at some interval. Newer lumber tends to be more of a problem unless you're very careful about the lumber you choose. And I don't know how careful that choice was. And mine who does this kind of work as a restoration builder says he won't buy lumber that's under 12 rings per inch. And that's not easy lumber to find, quite honestly. Because it's all around on plantations, but it is available. And if you use old lumber, it's also available. But it is, I mean, this is a building that is prominent, I think that. And I think we should be thinking about modeling the ethic of restoration rather than rip it off and replace it with.
Do you have this one, Dave, this package?
No, that is it.
I think it's partially.
May I take a look?
It's partially from you there, it's been spread around.
Do we know how far up the last repair was?
About this much.
It was,
So a foot up?
Yeah, I'm guessing more like 14 or 15 inches, but yeah. It's pretty, when you go up and look at the building, it's very apparent where it is.
no, it was just started coming apart again.
Yeah, you can really see it. That they definitely something needs to happen. But you could probably see it in that photo you got in the right hand. If you look carefully, you can probably see it.
Maybe. So Patrick, the dimensions of these columns compared to the dimensions of the columns you're proposing are, what's the taper, what's the bottom dimension, what's the top dimension? And I'm sorry, you're repeating something you've already
Yeah,
said.
no, not at all. So that's, I think what's been pointed out is it may be difficult to match the top dimensions because of the rather huge taper that's there. And so based on hearing that from you, all my suggestion would be that we replace just the bottom, because I'm confident we can match the barrel of the, the bottom circumference where it's just straight to the upper portions that are the unique wood portion. So if that's replacing the bottom 2 feet that are the pieces that are going to rot again sometime in the future, if we can replace those with just straight composite material that will not rot, and then blend that into the existing material, I think that would provide us with the best of both worlds from my perspective.
I think that might be a pretty decent compromise. A lot of people, when they do repairs on these columns, what they also do is they put little plinths underneath that allow drainage to pass under the column rather than to get trapped in the base of the column against that wood floor, which is holding the moisture. But that might be a pretty suitable compromise. Is the railing really need to be replaced? The railing just look that bad to me. Looks like it could use a good brushing and painting, but
It needs, yeah, there's a significant amount of it that would need to get either replaced or repaired. Could it last another 5 years? It probably could, but at the point where we're already taking everything apart.
I did not look as carefully at the railing as I did at the columns. Generally speaking, railings do better than just because they're recessed and they're in contact with the floor. So and sometimes the bottom rail can be dealt with and everything else can be kept. That's what I'm looking at. That's my contract now. It's my bottom rail needs dealt with.
Yeah, the bottom is definitely.
Yeah,
the worst part.
that's the thing that catches most of the weather because it's coming in underneath the clients.
But the proposal is to replace the entire railing with the composite material, correct?
Yes.
Dimensionally, is the composite material going to replicate the so in terms of, is this something you put together? Is this a
It's a sample of something that we used elsewhere. So it's the same material, and we can space our spindles to match the dimensions that are there.
would ever be to look at this? Excuse me. Have you guys discussed the railing already? And the contents, we're gonna stay outside until it's inside.
Well, we wouldn't have been able to vote if you weren't here, so it's just as well that you're here. We don't have quorum.
Right.
With Mr. Sanford. Forgot.
Okay, perfect.
Had to recuse himself.
Okay, any thoughts on this?
I love the drip edge,
Pretty fancy.
but it also, I mean, it keeps you from
Yeah,
tucking in there and
yeah.
trying to run it.
From the CEO's perspective, the main issue is how much of a precedent we're setting. Really,
Right.
honestly, is this something that we would be? On how many properties would be comfortable approving this?
Well, there are a number of properties that have gone and done this without asking permission.
Of course.
There's an awful lot of stuff going on in the village right now that has definitely not come before us. You keep hearing from me. Just, I have one to ask about later this evening.
Okay.
Don't let me forget.
So nobody has concern about this?
I'm not thrilled about it, quite honestly.
Is the height greater? Or will the height, the dimension,
If you replace it, don't you have to meet code?
yeah,
Yes.
so it will be higher?
Yeah.
I think that is triggered once the porch is 30 inches or more off the ground.
Oh,
27, I think.
Either way, this does not appear to me to be
okay,
at that.
You're much more familiar with code than I am.
That's my assessment of it, but I would, the code department will require that.
Code prevails, I assume.
yes,
Yes, it does.
yes.
Safety first.
Yeah, those pesky code enforcement people and those insurance companies.
Well, I mean, it's going from 30 to 36, completely changed the proportion of the porch. So what you look at today is not the same as what people got to see before.
Yeah, people tend to, railings tend to.
On the other hand-
Shorter.
It's safer.
Mhm. And that's, I'm just trying to visualize it because this is certainly
This seems tall.
tall.
Yeah.
So. Can you, if allowed within code, can you? Stick.
Can
with the
you
original?
match the height?
Yes.
Exactly, yes, yeah, so this comes as, these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 individual pieces. And so all the spindles are separate. So you can cut those to exactly, you could make
Okay.
it 12 inches high if you wanted.
But it still has to be code.
Right.
Yeah.
Depending on the height of the porch.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
So if we're under 27.5 inches.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 27 because that's the number that I needed to stay at for my back porch, so I didn't need a railing.
mhm.
Above that, I would have had to put a railing on it, and I didn't want to maintain the railing. Then, of course, I went straight over the edge of the railing and gave myself a concussion, so there you have it.
A strong case made for tall railings.
Right, well, I did actually this bicycle on the way down. Jesse.
Grace is not your middle name, is it?
No, it means not. I told you my.
Probably not during the meeting though. Anyway, does anybody have additional questions for Pat? You couldn't identify the height in your drawings, correct, of the porch?
I have from the ground, I can pull that up for you, but I have said that although 27 inches sounds correct to me, I'm not certain that that
Yeah,
is the
not
height.
absolutely positive. The reason I kind of, it's stuck in my brain is because I was born on the 27th.
Although, we have to bow to code, and so acknowledging that the height could be this height. If the height of the porch falls within the code allowing for that railing to remain lower, would you choose to keep it lower?
Yes, we
I mean,
want to keep it
dimensionally-
the same dimensions as
So-
what we have.
Okay. So does that make sense to everybody, with the understanding that they're gonna have to do what code dictates based on the height of the porch, but
I suspect that porch is within the
Yep.
acceptable height. I don't think
It's
it,
more
I
than
don't think
30
it's. that
inches
high.
off grade require a 36-inch minimum high guardrail built so that a 4-inch diameter ball object cannot pass through any caps horizontal. So
Right,
that's
okay, so it is 30,
30 inches.
good, yeah, I don't think it's 30 inches high.
Okay, so keeping it at the current height would be ideal.
That is what we would like to do, and if the county is otherwise.
Tell him to talk to Jesse.
No.
Dave's now the chair here, so, yeah. Okay, does anybody have any more questions, or would somebody like to make a motion?
Are we stipulating using replacement material on the lower section of the columns, or are we?
I think we determined that that was a fair compromise that people were comfortable with.
I'm very happy to do that.
So that should be stipulated in the minutes.
Got that? Okay, so does anybody want to make a motion?
I noticed that Pat never gets stuck doing.
I know you do this.
Historic preservation, I propose that we issue a certificate of appropriateness as the Historic Preservation and Special Review Board using the following criteria and guidelines. It is under 2A, 2B. It's not really compatible per se, so I'm not going to give you 2C. 3A, 3B. 3D. 3E. And then I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay,
Second.
thank you, Dave. Those votes yes.
Just votes yes.
Yes.
Pat, would you like to know for me? You voting?
I'd like to abstain.
I have to use this myself.
Dave is recusing himself. Bernie, welcome to H Park.
Oh, thank you.
Would you like to vote?
Just, I'm a little concerned about the precedence it sets on replacing railings and opens the gates for everybody to replace railings if the railings aren't able to hold up. You know, if that's just generally accepted, that railings aren't able to be maintained or repaired.
So that is when we get to talk to people, actually, when they don't feel like they can replace in kind. So when they feel maintenance, that something is beyond maintenance and they're proposing different materials. They don't have to come to us if they're just maintaining or replacing.
So is that what has happened here?
Yes.
That the railing has been deemed beyond repair?
According to the applicant, they're asking for a change in materials to mitigate future maintenance. So I don't think the railing has been deemed beyond repair. And we have approved materials like this on other buildings. When people really have argued for the maintenance. I think this cottage has gotten special attention because of the dimensions of the posts, and also because of its location in the village central to the business district and main intersection. we have, in the past, we look at every building and situation independently, but we have in the past approved alternative materials to wood. And materials like these composite paintable materials, in different situations. Just for your information, as a new person on the board. So the conversation that started before I came in about the slippery slope we are on continues.
Yes.
Yes,
Always,
yeah,
when the composite materials were not able to meet the level of detail as the original.
right.
Okay.
And so because the profile and the dimension are very comparable and the applicant is committed to maintaining the height, it seems like a fair compromise. With many elements of this porch, you don't want to lose those really unique posts, but the railings and the spindles are easily reversible in the future. If somebody went back, this would be considered, given a little historic preservation coding lesson for the types of
Appreciate it.
things we have to put in the minutes and tell the state historic preservation office would be considered a minor alteration. And partially because it is potentially reversible. Somebody could go back and easily put wood there, as opposed to tearing a major feature out of the building and changing it dramatically. And that would be considered major because it would be much harder to change back to the original. So that makes sense in terms of the spectrum of things we have to consider as we make these decisions. Certainly, if you were coming to us with vinyl, or the dimensions were dramatically off, or the material wasn't paintable, a lot of other factors might have caused a bigger discussion or a greater challenge. And yes, we want to see original materials preserved, but the precedent was set long ago to use replacement materials that are easier to maintain and dimensionally appropriate.
And the spacing turns out to be the same between the spending.
Yes, you can, yeah, you can adjust that as you assemble it.
That particular railing was built with dimensional lumber of the time. And this is modeled essentially on that, I think. So they should be able to, they should be able to be matched pretty closely.
And there was some definite statement on how the columns you're replacing. I mean, if you mentioned
Yeah, well, we want to get above any rod. I think it's safe to say it's not going to be more than 3 feet. It's certainly going to be in the straight part of the barrel. So, you know, if you're comfortable with that, I don't want to take out any more than I need to, because I don't want to put in any more new material than we need to.
Have to have something else to do next time.
Well, this is,
Yeah, it should-
that is,
it should prevent
that is
the
a
next
principle.
time.
You do want to be able to go back another time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should prevent it next time, actually, and
Absolutely.
many of us have been in the situation you're in, so understand that challenge of trying to keep rebuilding those wood posts, and that's not easy.
What was your take on the ventilation aspect? Prevent it from, I'm not sure how much is direct wicking, or what's your opinion on whether it's gonna stop the rot?
Which
Ventilation on the bottom of the
wood will start
the post
in here. And all of the base of the column and everything would be replaced with this material.
Yeah, and so, yeah,
Are you talking ventilation inside the column, or I think what Jesse had mentioned was adding
Ventilation in the plant.
is the plant? Yes, yeah, which I think it doesn't hurt. I've certainly seen similar columns that have plenty of, you know, they are. There is some ventilation under there, and if it's wet enough, you know, that doesn't prevent it, but I mean, certainly slow it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the everybody taking the time to
It's
get me caught up.
it's not, it's far from black and white in terms of any of these decisions, and we all can respectfully kind of question and dissent too, and that's where the voting comes in.
Okay, very good.
So feel free to vote your conscience. But it would be good to have an additional vote, since we have an abstention and a recusal in this situation.
I'm in, I appreciate the explanation.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Patrick.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
You too. Okay, so 50 Walnut was not here before,
And is now.
is now. Okay, why don't we hit 50 Walnut since you are here now? And, come on up and tell us about your project.
So, as you can probably see by the photos, the house is in desperate need of repair. Windows, siding, roofing, the porches, Jackson's brought me up to speed on what you would like, so I'm trying to just save the wood porches, leave them, scrape them, sand them, paint them. The windows are just a collage of beat up, some are aluminum storms, some are rotted wood sashes, some of them have plywood over it. So I'd like to replace those with a fiberglass clad window that's paintable. Thermal paint, obviously, and so that would cover the windows, doors. We've managed to cut sand and salvage one. There's 3 others that are, in my opinion, beyond repair. They've been dabbled with by some uncrafty people. So I wasn't sure on the doors if the fiberglass door would be appropriate, similar to a style that's there. So I'd like to replace the windows, the doors, and then re-side the house.
Tell us about the siding.
I'm sorry.
Tell us about the siding. I'm sorry.
So I think it used to be a gravel area around there. When they mowed it, they threw the stones at the siding and busted it all up. It's really, there's not a lot.
Or tell us what you'd like to replace it with. I guess that's the question.
So I would like to replace it all with vinyl. The cedar shakes on the bottom are in pretty tough shape too. So I would just have a clean slate.
Do you have samples of the vinyl you're looking at?
I left brochures about 3 months ago, the siding and the windows, so many brochures. Yeah, they're from like Curtis Lumber. So along with the siding, I'd like the fascias are aluminum wrap. Guessing probably from around the 70s. Looks like the house had a little remodel. And so I'd like to replace that, obviously, while we side it.
So you're proposing replacing all of the siding with a horizontal clapboard type siding, or are you proposing?
Well, it's vinyl on the second story now. So
Right, but in terms of the appearance of the siding, are you part of this is shingle? Or,
Yeah,
excuse me,
no, it's
shingle. Part of it is a clapboard book, a horizontal clapboard book. What, I'm just trying to, do you have a sketch of where, what, you know, are you just proposing one type of siding? That's my question.
But I'm.
No, that's, I wanted to clarify that because,
Are you?
What did you find
where-
underneath it?
So there's I'm not a builder, so for lack of a better term, just sort of a fiberboard,
Cellulose board,
yeah.
Oh,
moisture wicking material.
throughout the entire building, it's already, there's nothing underneath that.
Yeah, there's depending on where we dug in, there's some
Right.
old clapboard,
So it was with clappers.
there's some plywood. Looks like they
done away with some windows or doors.
Oh,
Some-
certainly you've lost a lot of openings. My guess is that, I know you've done a lot of interior work already. You found openings, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's,
And you decided not to put any of them back to help
I
provide your poor tenants with some light.
would just be happy,
Cave in
I
there.
would be happy if I could replace the plywood covered windows. Yes,
Yeah, I mean, it's a clunky building, but part of the reason it's clunky is because it's been so altered in terms of its fenestration, its windows. I did check the sandbournes, it doesn't actually, it turns up very late, and it's a little hard to tell. I kind of wonder if it was a 2-unit house. Did it have 2 doors on that front porch to start with?
not that
And
we,
symmetrical demonstration?
yeah, not that we,
Okay.
because we had
You haven't
the
found it?
interior wall part, and it doesn't appear that there was.
Okay.
I presume that it was a single family home
Okay.
from what we found, and then.
Yeah, it's not marked as a duplex in the Sanborn, so was there,
So from what we found, I think it was in the early 70s that it was either rehabbed into a multi-unit.
yeah, and the shingles are earlier than that. The shingles are probably 20s or 30s, no later than probably World War II. But the upstairs one was really recent. But I was asking, because I suspect it was entirely sided in wood clapboards to begin with. So the shingles are a change.
What's the date of this house? You know,
I think I dated it in circa 1890. If I can remember.
Michael, I know you haven't had to deal with us much and we're not as scary as we seem. First of all, you know, all of this was standing. Thank you for not asking for a demolition permit. No, I'm very serious.
Close.
Well,
Sure.
then you wouldn't like us, but
Everybody giving so much.
we do applaud the work you're doing. And we would like to, you know, help you to do it as thoughtfully as possible within the limitations of your budget and goals.
The number was 1890.
Thank you. And looking at this on my phone, what's your plan for the porch?
There's a front porch and a
Yeah.
side porch.
The front porch, I'm sorry.
My initial plan is to sand it. There's some porch boards that are starting to warp up. If we can refasten them. The concrete steps, I was going just basically the blue style.
I think the porch was there to begin with.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that porch is part of the original thing.
I would
If it's not, it's early. It's by 1920, it's there. Actually, it's a really sweet porch.
It is a sweet
I love
porch.
that porch.
It's the only good
And-
thing in the house. Yeah.
Well,
You do a pretty nice door on the side facing the access to the market. And I still want to call it the Great American, but
That's the one that we were able to sell.
yeah, it's a nice clean end door. And there's a lot of, I mean, this house is a hodgepodge, there's no question about it.
Yeah.
And making it a little bit less of a hodgepodge might help,
Well, that's my goal, is to make it
you know.
a very nice home.
So are you thinking this is a single? Are you thinking of turning it back in, keeping it as apartments? Okay, we desperately need apartments.
Yeah.
You also have a nice foundation.
Yeah.
Under the main block.
Yeah.
That's your block addition.
what's the plan for the side porch?
I think we can. The floor is salvageable. The lattice work, I'm hoping that we can change all the lattice work to something a little bit more defined. It's got the 45-degree angle lattice. Or we want to try to change something to it. What's the terminology for the square?
The square lattice instead.
The,
And
like the front porch.
right.
The front porch
Side
is
has the
ag-
square.
Square, I'm sorry, okay.
I would like to.
I was just curious, I'm definitely glad to hear you're saving the front porch, and I'm just trying to get my mind around the whole project. The door replacement is just the front door, those back lower basement level doors, planning on replacing those two? How
Yes,
many doors?
those are also, that they're literally plywood.
No, I get it. You don't have to make the argument. I'm trying to wrap my mind around all the elements of things you're trying to come to us for. Just so we have a good inventory in our heads of this, and Marcia has a good inventory on paper. So there are two of those entry level doors at ground level, correct?
Correct, on the back.
Yeah. And those are also proposed for fiberglass replacement as well. And then how many on the main section of the house?
So the front door, and then the two on the back of the home, and then on the, I think I proposed 4. The one on the side, where the side porch is.
The old wooden one does that face 28, that side of the house?
The other side.
Okay.
Yep.
Then, I mean. Where does this door face? Sorry,
It's okay.
I'm trying to remember.
So that's the one we're able to stop.
Okay,
That basically,
good.
I should.
Great, okay, super. And that's currently not on the house, and you say you're able to salvage it, you're,
Oh, we just removed it, sanded it down and
it's good.
resealed the
Yeah, I
glass.
think it's back.
Yeah.
Do you have images, are they in the package of the doors you're proposing?
Don't remember if they were in the windows.
No,
Then-
true of some sort.
Exactly.
Are you going to try to match the? I mean, is there any paneling detail to try to match on this?
So,
We could also consider that as a field change if you haven't chosen the doors yet.
I think that might, some guidelines, we might be able to offer you some thoughts on, what kinds of doors we might like to see.
okay.
Given that it's a tenant property with several units, is there a requirement that they not be wood doors?
That's my knowledge. So it's a 2-story property.
First choice would probably be, at least for the ones that are open onto porches that are above grade, would be wood doors, the ones in the back that are the cellar doors. And on the back of the building, from a moisture management standpoint, I can see why you wouldn't want to do that, but wood panels. And probably given the age of the house and that it was a working class house rather than a high style house. If there are lights square rather than oval, you know. The one that really makes me break out in hives is those wooden doors with the ovals that have been so stained glass. It's like, oh God, what was someone thinking? It's actually, I'll stop there. I read something the other day that made me think about it again. But anyway, something that the door that you restored is a pretty complicated door. Not entirely clear to me that that's a door that was part of the original scheme. I suspect that it might have been added when it was broken up into apartments.
There you go.
And it came from someplace else, but something that's a simpler version of that feel is probably what you're looking for, and trying to maintain the dimensions of the doors that are there, if they seem to have original casings, because they'll fit with the house more, unfortunately. So those are my thoughts. And I think right now it's getting much easier to find that, but really, a handsome set of doors will enhance your property considerably. It'll make a tenant say, "Ooh, I like that."
So you would suggest similar to the one that we restored?
Yeah, something that's in that sort of sense where there's a glazed panel, and there's some sort of a panel arrangement. I think there's 3 across the top above the glazed panel, if I remember correctly. So it's, it needed to be as fancy as that, is what I would say, but since that got put in at some point, I'm glad you're keeping it. But the others, there are examples around town. If you just walk around town a bit, you'll see And as I say, simple, stay simple. The house was never fancy.
No.
So, you know, something really elaborate. isn't really the right choice.
So the configuration of the windows you're proposing fiberglass and not all windows being replaced, just the ones you can't repair, correct?
No, I proposed all the windows.
All windows, okay, I'm sorry.
That's what.
And then just the one over one window, correct?
Correct.
Are there any 202s in that building?
No.
Okay. Are there any old windows in that building? Truly old windows? It's 1890 on that side of town, which is the working class side of town. I would have expected that they'd be 202s rather than one of the ones to start with. 202s persist into the early 1900s. In less expensive houses, because it was less expensive to have the glass. The glass was less expensive than the labor. I'm sorry, the labor was less expensive than the glass to make it a large 1/1. You know, a 2/2 sash was just as easy or less costly than making the larger single lights. That's why I'm asking. I would have expected that it started with 2/2s, but I don't know.
From Jackson would know better than me, but I don't think there's a lot of original equipment on that house.
No.
It's pretty.
And there's even less now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really tough one.
Yeah.
Do you have old photos?
Yes, I had them when I turned in my application. You mean old photos?
Yeah.
Right. Oh,
Historic photos.
Oh,
Just
just
current.
And
The current ones. Yeah.
this what must be a bathroom window that's gonna be replaced in kind when you're talking about post? Okay, so that penetration isn't changing, and that's the replacement window.
Right.
In addition to
Right.
casements, excuse me, whatever ones. Okay, so looking at the brochure for the siding, you know, vinyl is generally something we really discourage. And in addition, the wood grain siding is something we generally have not approved, that we would like to see a smooth clapboard.
Okay.
The board has not approved that in most cases. I don't know if folks have questions about the siding he's proposing or would like to talk about opinions about this siding on this particular building.
There's evidence.
We have a sample.
No, we have this book, Pat.
I think whatever he does to this building.
I don't disagree.
I'm inclined to agree.
Thank you.
I would still like some consideration for going back to what the evidence is, which is it's wood fibered. We tend, you know, in the long run, vinyl doesn't last all that well. Vinyl is actually not right. So my preference would be to see wood fiber go on with the building, but I know the cost is different. And what's on it right now is a terrible mess. It's not a pretty building. So, but it could be made nicer. I think wood might make it look a whole lot nicer.
It's not an overly attractive house regardless. It's not worth putting clapboard siding back on it for the cost. But I value your opinions. Now, I want to make it a very nice home and in the village, but there's a point where
I leave it alone.
It would be really helpful if you are really advocating for vinyl, for you to come to us with some samples that we can look at to get a real sense, not just in the book. From what I have heard at this meeting, I would ask board members and somebody else might want to make a motion in another way, which is fine, to make a motion regarding your window proposal. Overall, I think where you're going with this project, and you know, we've given you some feedback, is laudable. We really need to see what you're proposing for doors before we can approve the replacement. In theory, we you know, say your proposed replacement makes sense, but you need to come with, this is the door I'd like to put on. And I hesitate to have a serious conversation about the vinyl without really seeing a sample of the product, not just the book. I would encourage you to, I understand economically, the wood is a lot more expensive. Are there engineered products that might be a compromise? I know they're not cheap either. Maintenance might be, might mitigate that cost difference. But before, I think I will speak for myself, I would hesitate to have a serious conversation about vinyl until I saw a sample of it. So I think to get you going, you know, we can certainly, I would encourage somebody to make a motion regarding windows. If other people have other opinions, feel free to make motions, or Dave.
No, like I said, anything. Prove this building.
So is it my understanding that I can change like materials?
Yeah.
So the asphalt, we put asphalt in front.
Yeah, yes.
So the second story of the house is vinyl, I could vinyl. The lower portion, I can.
You leave in paint. If you wanted to do that, you know, that is the way the law reads. If you wanted to get, and.
I mean, I don't, I want to make it, like I said, I want to make it very nice and attractive.
And are the shingles salvageable? They're pretty rough.
Yeah, I had kind of toyed with that a little bit, maybe salvaging them off one of the back portions to repair 3 other sides and then do something different there. In a perfect world, I'd strip the vinyl and all that off, and there'd be clapboards in there, and we can patch it in and paint the house. But we don't know until we tear it off, and then I don't want to get to that point and then
Find out you're kind of
find
stuck.
out, yeah.
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to make a motion regarding vinyl, we can see where the board goes with it. I would propose a motion regarding the windows. The roof, unless you're changing material or color technically, but you can tell what color the roof is right now.
Moss.
Moss.
It's green.
But in kind.
Yeah, roof replacement in kind does not require a vote. But before we kind of officially vote on the doors, we need to see what you're proposing. Any thoughts on the vinyl, Dave Strogatz?
I would agree that since we're coming back to look at doors, then to see samples.
Yeah. And you know, I would love to find a compromise. You know, we don't design, but I would love to find a compromise where those shingles are maintained and you choose other materials that might be used where you can't maintain the shingles. And
So you would like to see them?
that would personally, I mean, Jesse's frowning, but and I understand in a perfect world that might not work, and aesthetically it might not work. I get it. You know, so it's tricky, but certainly please give other materials some thought
Sure.
and get us a sample of what you're proposing with the vinyl.
Yeah, I'm not stuck on vinyl. It's no. It just comes to a standpoint where, where you draw the line now.
You're seeing a lot of money in it.
Yeah.
You've been working there for a while.
I understand, but again, overall, I think everybody agrees that we'd like to help you find a way
Yeah.
to make this work, because it's good to see the building get the attention it needs. Pat, do you have any questions or thoughts?
Not really.
Okay, Bernie, how about you?
I'm just partially out of curiosity, I guess. Folks probably aren't into shingles. I don't know, there's doing shingles on the top half with vinyl would be extraordinarily expensive.
Thank you very much, Dave.
I'm sorry. Would the, I'm just curious about shingles replacing the vinyl. And that way it would be all shingles, and then I would start off saying that probably people aren't that into shingles, but I have these shakes on my house, so I've grown to like it, but I can understand how shakes aren't necessary, but they might be extraordinarily expensive too, so I was just curious as to.
Shingles are pricey for good ones, but, the thing that's kind of always struck me as odd about that house is that the shingles are on the first floor, where in almost every instance where shingles were used in combination with anything else, the upper story was shingled, and the first floor was covered, and there's plenty of examples of that from the teens and 20s in the village and into the 30s. Those big, deep reveals, they're a little bit later, and they're frequently not as good quality. And I'm gonna guess that there was too much wet underneath on the bottom, and so that was a way of dealing with it, but
Or were the shingles all the way up? And then they got.
I don't, well, it's possible that there was, that you find shingles underneath the vinyl, who knows?
There wasn't where we did drill through.
You found shingles.
Yeah.
Oh,
I suspect that the shingles have another reason, and they're really peculiar, where they are, etc. People, if there is a lot by community, shingles were used shingles were a really popular way to refinish a house in the teens and 20s and into the 30s in some communities in Otsego County. Go down to the village of Morris, they're everywhere. There was a shingle mill that manufactured shingles, and that was a way of sort of upgrading your house. And underneath those shingles, there's old wood clapboards. And there's nothing wrong with them per se. Your house is an example as well, the one down here on Fifth Street with the shingles. It's not the original material, and what I said about the history of a building is, there's no reason to get rid of them unless they're failing. And that would be the question: is are those shingles failing? They look pretty bad to me.
So, if we propose a siding with samples, would it be an option to, prior to buying any materials, if you said we approve this siding, if we tear off the siding that's there and we can repair and salvage the clapboard siding, could we go?
Oh,
that
certainly, please, yeah. Yeah.
So this is the 22nd house we've done renovation that I've never vinyl the house. I'm not a huge fan, but again, this.
I understand the situation, but we certainly would not discourage you from doing that. It's,
I just don't want to get to that point where we strip all the siding off and then.
yeah.
And so if it were in disrepair, then I already want to have that approved, so just go with it.
So
it seems to me that there are so many moving parts with this building. The exterior of it remains a question mark in many ways. And so I think Liz's idea of starting with one and coming in with proposals for things as you proceed, maybe two things, because I know the building season is upon us for May, to let you get rolling with some of the exterior work, but I think we want to know what you discovered.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, then, like I said, fingers crossed, that's what we discovered.
right, and we respect that you're trying to maintain some of those original materials, are willing to work with us.
Sure.
Bring us something tangible to really get a feel for, and maybe bring us two options.
Okay.
So, this is my preferred, this is another option. Yeah.
So
Generally, would you if we went the vinyl route, you'd want a smooth vinyl and you would want something maybe not all just horizontal?
Oh, no, I wasn't suggesting that. I was just trying to get a handle on it. I couldn't, I read your application maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah.
When we first started looking at it, and for some reason I thought the goal was to replace and we see a lot of applications, so maybe this came in another one, replace the shingles with vinyl shingles and replace the horizontal with horizontal siding. And that's why I was like, was this the application? So forgive me, show us what you'd like to do. See what you can do with original materials. I'm not suggesting you have to piecemeal things together, but if you find a way to make that work, we certainly applaud you using as much original material as possible.
Do you know the house was built?
1890s.
1890.
1890.
I would suspect that the change. Relatively speaking.
Could I make one comment about
Absolutely.
if it comes down to that the vinyl stays on the top or replaced and the shingles stay down below because no other something was reached, that maybe the color scheme could go a long way to make it much more attractive.
Yeah.
So just something to think about to bring up in the future.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to confuse the issue. I'm just asking about whether you thought about trying to maintain this off. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I would love to. It's just everything.
So are we encouraging him to replace the shingles and?
He's gonna bring us the siding to look at next month, and I think he's gonna do a little more investigating. And whether we approve the vinyl or not, or whatever we approve for replacement, when he gets to tearing the old vinyl off, if there are salvageable clapboards or he can work with original materials, he's gonna try to do that. I think he'd like to have the vinyl approval as a safety valve, or the proposed material approval as a safety valve in case he can't salvage what's underneath.
In the case of the vinyl, I think Jesse is correct in that normally the shingle would have been at the top, the clapboard on the bottom. But his house precedes Queen Anne. Anyway. What was the date?
1890.
1890?
You're right, smack in the beginning of Queen Anne's.
That's very close.
But the shingle, I mean, the house is so vernacular that style is
Right.
not.
That's why I would be inclined to put it later.
I'm sorry, you'd be inclined to what?
And inclined to put the style of the house as later than the date that the house was built.
Would you prefer I try to salvage the shingles?
Would what?
Because I'm very open with this. I mean, we can't lose on this thing. I mean, if that's something that you would prefer, then we'll.
A salvage or replacing kind, if your materials are so compromised that it's not worth it, replacement in kind. If you can salvage and fill, that's ideal, but that's if that works for you. Like Dave said, anything you do is going to be an improvement. We just do have to be careful about the type of material we approve, especially, when it gets in that vinyl area. Jesse, you were going to say something.
You want those shingles gone, don't you?
Personally, I think the shingles look really funny. I think they were a stopgap for something later. I'm not sure what's going on underneath them. My guess is that if you took them off, you might just find there's clapboard underneath it. What the condition would be, who knows? What possessed someone to put those shingles on is a whole other question. They've been there a while, but it's kind of difficult, it's a guess. And it's, a title, the deed, by doing a deed search, you probably have an abstract that might go back a ways. There might be a moment in time that gives you a pretty good clue, maybe when it turns into a tenant house, who knows, but something is, they're weird. They're very atypical of what people did.
It sounds like we're possibly ready to consider the windows and.
Yeah, I think
invite
we
Michael
should-
to bring us
Give it-
more samples.
And we are ready to do the windows, and I think this is again, one of those kind of not impasses, but challenges we have. We want to encourage original materials to be maintained or replaced, but
And they do tell a story, it's just a question of whether
There's a lot of
the story should be preserved or not, under certain, given current conditions, who knows?
so, yes, it's tricky. Bring us what you propose and see what you find.
So you would prefer on the, not to jump around there, but on the doors, you would prefer 2 wooden doors and 2 fiberglass doors because of the locations.
I think
Rather
for
than all
the
doors.
entry door on the main floor, wood would be preferable, but I completely understand
Oh, that's
why on
fine.
the back you would want something that's more durable.
Yeah.
Because they're not protected.
And again, you can propose
Okay.
what you prefer and
Okay.
have something else prepared if we aren't accepting that.
Okay.
So we're
Okay.
gonna start with the window.
Let's start with the windows, understanding you can do the roof replacement because you're proposing a replacement in kind. Does somebody want to make a motion regarding the replacement of 17 windows at 50 Walnut Street? Thanks. Do you want to, can you vote and then vote?
What?
Can you vote and then vote?
Yes.
Thank you, Pat. We really won't hold your hostage any longer.
The Historic Preservation Board is making the following determination on an application for certificate of appropriateness for property at 50 Walnut Street. And for window replacement. And the board, this would be under 3A. Possibly 5, and inefficiency because the windows are in such rough shape. And I would think that probably, if it's good enough, I don't think, because they're in such funny places, it's a strange building, I'm sorry.
It is very much.
That it's going to be a tenant property, we desperately need them.
Yes. Thank you, Jesse. Any discussion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dave. Pat, would you like to vote?
What?
Vote.
Yes.
Liz, yes, you can go. Thank you.
David, yes. It's here.
Jesse, Bernie, would you like to join
Yes.
us? Great, thank you.
Yes, a couple quick things now. So if we do the exploring with the final down through before our next meeting, and it's in disrepair, I would be able to replace that panel with an approved panel.
We have to see what you're proposing and discuss it.
So-
That's, so I can't say yes or no.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying, bring me
Okay.
what you're proposing. Maybe bring me a compromise.
Mhm.
So we have, if what you want is not acceptable, and I can't speak for the rest of the board, you might be able to say, okay, then about this. Okay, so you're not waiting another meeting,
There you
okay?
go. Great.
And you can use the
Okay.
door.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to 60 Grove Street, Eric. Thank you for your patience. How are you tonight?
All right, good. How are you?
Good. would you like to tell us about your project?
Well, it's a little one again. It's just replacing a window that's clearly not functional and broken. And since we already changed one last year, well, we got it approved, so it hasn't been changed yet. We want to do a match that one, and yeah.
And this is on the back of the building, right?
No, this one's on the side.
It's outside?
So they are all replacement windows already. Some of them are quite recent. They still have their energy stickers on them. We left them there. So yes, I think they're yeah, they're not, the windows themselves are not old. I mean, the house is 1890s, you know. So yeah, we want to replace the double hung window by a tilt and turn window.
Dave, do you have any questions for Eric?
I have no questions.
Jesse, do you?
I don't think so.
Bernie, do you have any questions for Eric? Yeah. And you know, I know we already approved one for the back, Eric, and my only concern is the loss of that double hung look compared, have you given that thought compared to the rest of the
Yeah, I was
windows on
thinking,
that side of the house?
yes, I had anticipated that that might be the concern, so. I mean, I can think of a couple of solutions. One is to put a
Spacer.
artificial spacer with in mind that we can remove when we change the ball, so that they would all match.
Mhm. So is that the goal, to eventually
Yeah.
get to the tilt and turns in all the windows?
Yes, as we make progress, I mean, we have to prioritize the repairs that need to be done more
I'm sure these
urgently.
are not inexpensive windows either.
No.
Based on Eric's thought there, does anybody want to weigh in about whether they'd like to see that or not? I wanted to put it out there because it seemed like the elephant in the room.
I would wager again that we're looking at a house that had 2/2s throughout. And we've certainly seen tilt and turns that have 2/2s, that are 2/2s. And I think that a single light like is being proposed is really inappropriate. It's just not right, especially if it's on the side of the house. You can really see that side of the house when you walk up and down the street. On the back, I would have less trouble. So, but it should have divisions.
So if he adds that division to it,
To match what's currently there. So
No, I
do
think
1/1s, do 1/1.
the division to match what is there, or 2x2.
Well, at the point when you eventually do all of the windows, I don't know if we have the thirds of these, but it would have been unusual for a house on this side of town. In this period, we had 1/1s when it was built. It probably had 2/3s throughout.
Yes.
And they were put back. I mean, there are other houses on the street that have 2/2s and
Still have.
and they look right. They don't, but this was done in a period when people were doing inexpensive
You have it
vinyl
written,
replacement fashion.
you've called it period fenestration with 1/1. That's the recognition of the vinyl. The
Yes.
building constructed in 19.
So, but there should be some light division, a single light, doesn't right, I don't think.
a single light, what, is good, is that a single? Oh, a single light,
Yeah.
I would say that, especially since at this point,
That's appropriate.
for uniformity, since the others are 1/1.
Yeah.
If you're willing to put that dimensional piece in on the outside,
Yeah.
that would be ideal.
So, because you do have a plan to eventually go ahead and replace everything.
Yes, but then if we replace everything, you want those divisions to stay?
I think let's cross that bridge when we come to it.
Okay.
Does that sound fair?
You would be doing single light tilt and turns throughout the building?
If we get to that, yes.
I think I would have a lot of trouble with that. So personally.
But this proposal is for one, so we'll talk about the one.
Yes,
Okay.
so we do a horizontal division.
Something dimensionally matching it, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you. Does anybody want to make a resolution?
Your turn.
My turn, so move that a park provide a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 60 Grove Street. So with the modified plan for window as discussed here. Under criteria 2A. 3A. 3D and 5.
Okay. Hey, any discussion? Liz votes yes.
David, yes.
Yes, on this one.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Eric.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Johnny, would you like to tell us what you're thinking about this month?
This month. You got photos?
I think I have.
You got it? All right, well, I was hoping to
I
add.
already would like.
Here you go. Yeah, I was hoping to add a couple of windows to the west side of the house. One is in the living room on that first page. And then on the back side, on the west side as well, but further back in the house to put one in the bedroom there. It's ended up not having very many. It has one window on the south side. There are a lot of trees and it's pretty dark currently. So we're hoping to put a west side facing window there.
And these are to match the ones we approved
Yes,
with the replacements.
yeah.
So and that's it, correct?
Those two, and then there's a little back porch.
Mhm.
And I was hoping to swap a window that is in what is going to be our like pantry room, washer dryer, would hopefully be the entryway. Swap that window with a door that currently opens into the kitchen. And it was into the former kitchen. And it just seems like a really impractical place to have a door, because where are you gonna put
Everything else.
everything else, you know, and you're going right into the kitchen. We're gonna have ideally a kitchen table there, and that it'll be a little bit more of an open plan with the kitchen, so.
So you're proposing to use that door in the.
Yeah, we could-
and
we
the
could-
framing and.
Yeah, exactly, and just swap the two. The door probably wouldn't be very well insulated in its current form, and so, you know, I'd have to find an alternative to exactly mimic that, or put a storm or.
Storm nice, because they had screen, you can put a screen insert on the top and then you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Having had three of them put into that.
That would be really great if you could do it with the storm door and keep
Yeah.
the original door. Especially if it's an exterior door now and it's functioning as one.
Mhm, yeah,
It is a skinny door.
it is kind of skinny.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is.
You can't put on any
It's a
bigger.
Put a bigger way. You guys find a lot more glass. We do fine with a lot more glass and make it a little wider, you know?
Okay. So add two windows.
And swap a window and a door.
Swap a window and a door. The door currently would be the existing door, and if you're going to change that, you'll let us know.
Yeah, and so if I were to change that, would it be required that it maintain the same window
That
proportion? Is
would be
what-
ideal. I
Yeah.
mean, you have a really nice little door there and,
Yeah.
it's appropriate to the house. Storm doors do not require approval, just so you know. So if you keep the door and add a nice storm door, you do not have to come for approval on that.
And if that door were to be switched, though, you would want it to be of a similar
We would,
style.
you
And we need to come
come
back
to us with a
with
proposal.
that proposal, yeah.
Jesse, do you have any questions?
And my main, it looks to me from what's proposed that these are all going to match the proportions of existing openings, and that would be the thing that would. You know, I would ask, would those openings be matched?
I thought that would be the case.
Hmm.
Yes.
Oh, you're getting to know me.
Anything else?
No,
Dave?
Switch. Door to window and window to door makes a lot of sense.
Bernie?
Sounds good.
Okay. Who's gonna make the motion?
we're getting back to you. It's 7:20.
Couple more to go.
Okay, I move that, we issue this, that the ACARB, issue a certificate of appropriateness for, the proposal for the house at 63 Elm. And the board's decision shall be based on the principles of, 2A, 2B, 2C, 3, A, B, D, and E in terms of preparing, swapping the door in the window, and I think that covered it. Yeah, I guess so, because these will be, yeah, maybe energy efficiency. Yeah, the storm door for certain, yes, fine, thank you. Right.
You said
Okay.
the storm is okay. Is
Yeah,
that-
oh, yeah, storms are definitely okay.
Storms do not
Do not
have dust for review.
Great.
Because they're
A whole load of them, like,
great, Liz votes yes.
David, yes.
Oh, David seconded.
Kathy, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks.
All right. Representatives of 76 Fair are not here to my knowledge. Okay, 17 Elm Street. Need to see.
We've got it here. What is this?
I think that everyone's seen this, right?
Yeah, we had a clip copy of it, but we had a chance to look at it. and ask questions.
Would you like to tell us about your project?
Yeah, it's a little overhang over someone's building in the back of the house. And we did our best to match what's there, so it's gonna be made out of either Grandis or mahogany.
What was the first thing you said? Water mahogany?
I think it's red Grandis.
Oh, Grandis, okay.
Yeah,
Species.
it is.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So,
Favorite product.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. That in terms of the roof, we're changing the roof on the house. Just so you know, the roof, and I'll get a separate permit for it. It's a cedar roof. So we priced the roof out to do, it's $100,000. So cedar is quadrupled in price in the last 2 years. So anyone with a cedar roof is going to be coming here to change, because as much as we'd love to do it, $100,000 for a roof is just, it's so much money.
So you'll come for a permit to change those materials when you're ready.
Yeah, we're going back and forth with them, and whatever we choose on the roof, we'll put on this roof as well. That's why I didn't spec the roof. So we just want to have this done in time, so when the roofers come, they can roof the whole thing at once.
I remember when that roof was put on.
Now that I can see the
The shingle
drawings as opposed to,
That was pretty, oh yeah, well, it's not that old, it's maybe 25 years old.
Not, it's down to like, it's super thin.
Yeah. It's modern lumber, that's the problem.
Basement.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember it being put on, it was put on.
who made this looks, I just wanted to make sure it's not a faux material, it's actually the.
We're not proposing to change that. So
Okay.
What's there? It's the roof additions that you want to be proposed.
Okay.
And they put that roof on.
It didn't hold up nearly as well.
No, it's maybe it's lumber, it's just a problem.
Is the, I don't know what you call the four leaf cutout
The quatrefoil.
quadrifoil, that's what I would have called it, but.
There you go.
The quadrifoil, is it, does it match exactly the dimensions of the one up top? It looks slightly different, than I was curious as to why you would change the dimensions.
It probably is sized differently for that. The angle has changed a little bit on it, so.
On the quad side itself, not the. Oh, you're saying the roof pitch.
The roof pitch, usually
Yeah.
the roof
Mhm.
pitch up above is more steep. As you go down in structure, your roofs usually can be less steep.
Mhm.
Lower down as it gets higher.
So that might relate to the shape of the quadrifoil as to whether
Yeah.
it's the change in the dimensions of it.
The one existing on the very top of the roof, so I can do that.
Okay. So it's, it's in keeping, is it exactly? I don't know.
Well, I did not go around back and have a look. Is there any evidence that there was a roof overhang over this doorway to start with, or has it always been?
It's always just been, so what happens is all the rain comes off the roof, there are no gutters, which is fine.
Okay.
There's a good overhang, but because there's steps downstairs now, it's,
Yeah, but with a giant
it just
puddle.
goes down the steps and runs in the basement,
Yeah, that's not ideal, is it?
so.
Looks beautiful.
Yeah, it does. Very nice. And the door,
We're staying, it's a rigid, whatever it is.
whatever's there, okay,
Yeah, we're not doing anything, it's just the overhang.
okay. Wasn't sure, I didn't see anything about materials, but I wanted to ask.
I think there's something on the side.
About the door materials.
the door.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check. Yeah, no. Okay, any other questions? Looks good to me, do you have any other questions for anyone?
No.
Okay.
23 years old. So, yeah. Yep, not spread.
Okay.
I remember when it went on, I'm trying to remember the doctor's last name. I can come up with two of his kids and I think it's splitting through my head.
I would have said they were 40 or 50 years.
I was gonna say that's usually the lifespan, but it depends on the quality of the shingles.
Yeah.
So that could have been the problem, but I'm not surprised at the estimates you're getting for the materials.
No, we don't want.
I think it's $1,200 a square. As opposed to shingles, asphalt are 150 to 200 the most.
It's unfortunate, but.
People on Nantucket, gonna be tearing their hair out.
Well,
It's all.
they're in Nantucket,
Yeah, they
you
can
know what,
afford it.
$1,200. They can-
I know. Not telling me anything I don't know.
Okay. Back to Cooperstown. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Actually, could I make one comment?
Go for it.
Is there, back to the shape of the quadrifoil, is there any reason why you wouldn't wanna, I mean, it's hard for me to tell, but it just seems that if it would be all the same to you, that they would match, or does it matter to you?
Well,
As this spreads,
Mhm.
it changes the scale of the center. I don't know that necessarily this
Okay.
quadrifoil itself is much different, but this.
Yeah, I was just concerned to just strictly with the quadrifoil, this one looks like it's more, it's not as rounded.
Got it.
Right.
And I don't even know that's not, actually, I think yours is more attractive than that one, but it just seemed to me that if they matched it. I mean, it's not, I wasn't sure whether that was something that you would want to go for, or perhaps if your quadrifoil is more attractive than the other one.
let's go for the more attractive.
Better.
Quadrifoil is
All right.
the item.
Sounds good.
Again, it's very good. I think we should applaud him for a very thoughtful replication of a historic feature.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And in a place where very few people will see it too, so that the homeowner's investment in that is very thoughtful.
And like I say, I think it is more attractive than the I was just curious about your thoughts on it. Thank you.
Sure. Motion?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
I mean that we, with the certificate of appropriateness for the proposed basement roof overhang at 17 Elm Street under 2A, 2B, 2C, 3A. I guess we won't cover scale because we're worried about that copy file. 3C, we're not gonna worry about, 3D. 3E, and I think that covers it. Do you have anything to add, Dave?
Did you say 3D?
I did,
Yeah, yeah. Visual compatibility.
yeah. There we go.
I second.
Any discussion?
Oops.
Liz votes yes.
Yes, yes.
David, yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. I reached out to, that's perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Insinger, Ralph Insinger.
Okay,
Yeah.
so who is here regarding 14 Delaware Street? Is anybody here regarding 14 Delaware? Okay, then am I to assume Jackson 77 Beaver?
Yeah, I got a call on that one today and went over and spoke with Jacob and we discussed and he said he'd be willing to come in tonight and talk to us about it. So.
We haven't had a chance to really review this, so bear with us, but
No,
please
I
come
just,
and
he
explain.
shot me those images and the application is not complete, but I stopped the guys in mid-work due to the change that was going on there, and so invited them to come in and discuss and see how it goes.
Okay,
If y'all have the energy for one more.
so tell us what's going on with this property and
So there's siding that needed to be addressed, and mostly the corners were leaking because of exposed end grain and the way that they constructed the siding with flat boards. It's really not a traditional method of installing. So also there was some other parts of the house that had some vertical corner boards. So we started to just replace cutting back the siding to save mostly the good siding that's left, and where the corners were bad is where we started to replace the siding.
with the vertical corner
Or with
boards.
it, yeah, sorry, with replace with the vertical corner boards.
So, there were not vertical corner boards in those locations.
Not in
before.
those locations.
But you expressed that some of the images here that you've shared are vertical corner boards that appear to be older part of the structure.
Yeah,
They're only on the porch on the side because of the way the porch is constructed. They're not on the main block.
yeah, and some, I took a picture of the garage that has the corner detail too. It appears to be very.
The garage, it's a carriage barn that was built, I'm not absolutely sure the carriage barn may be older than the building. I'm not absolutely positive.
But in some of the pictures, you can see that most all the outside corners are split and separated so that water gets in there and it's all water staying behind them. So it's a problem that needs to be fixed.
From a builder's, I will express my opinion from a builder's perspective. I know that it's a sweet little architectural detail, but it does not appear to be layered in a manner to effectively shed water without copious amounts of constant. I mean, paint will be your final protection.
The end grain is
Right,
not ideal because it just absorbs.
exposed end grain, which
I've never honestly never seen clapboard siding done in such a fashion. It's shingled alternatively.
It was it was actually a very expensive, high-end finish when it was put on. The intent of that finish is to, maintain the horizontality of the design of the building rather than it being vertical.
Right.
So it's perfect, and it's really coming out of prairie style. I think some wood, right? There are other examples in the village. Most of them don't have that very narrow. These are quite narrowly revealed. And the principle behind, on this is that you've got an 18-inch or more overhang on the roof, which this building is 100 years old, maybe a little older. And it's done pretty well. And most of the lumber is pretty sound, but the corners do need work. You're absolutely right. But you're ripping off all the siding, which is old growth lumber, and putting on something that is soft without matching the reveal, and putting corner boards on is a pretty severe alteration to the concept of the building. So that's, plenty of buildings do have corner boards just like that, but this particular finish had a particular cachet about it. I think it's a shame to lose one of the few examples we have in the village of something that someone did because they were really proud of the building. This is, it's an expensive finish because everything needs to be cut and mitered in order to match up. Unlike the corner boards, which are designed to hide whatever errors were made by the carpenter. So,
Destiny, I apologize for interrupting you. Because this was not in the materials we got, do you have an image of the building? Because I'm just blanking on which building it is.
it's the one that's being painted blue.
Okay, so it's the one that Keith was.
Yeah,
working
Keith
on.
did the painting on the front.
Okay, so there were corner boards put on already. No, I thought he had
Last
already.
year we put corner boards.
They did, but not Keith.
Okay.
because
But
those
I
corner
didn't
boards-
say Keith put them on, but there were corner boards added.
Yes, last year.
So this is not the first.
No.
Right.
Are there extra pictures?
Sure. Here's my phone. Keith was the one I was painting for that.
Say that again.
Keith is the one who was painting.
Painted. That's.
And
though
the corner boards that were put on the three-sided bay on the west side, there were not corner boards there, and there are these little skinny little things that are scooting up in the wide, shallow angles. They're completely out of character.
So you removed material where you put the corner boards on, correct?
No, yeah. Siding on the west side is all gone. The siding on the back is all gone. The siding on the east side is disappearing.
So you're removing the clapboards, and what is the plan for replacement?
We'll put them just with clapboards back up.
It's a different reveal.
Different reveal.
Slightly different. With the corner board. I mean, the quality of the work is fine. It's just that it's not right for the building.
Was the wood siding on the front replaced, or Keith painted that? So
Yeah.
So
The reason we started to replace siding on the bay bump
On
outside
the west side.
was that side was really terrible. Like there was no reason for him to paint it. So started to tear it off and replace what was damaged, which ended up being most of it on that side. And in order to sort of start and stop, the corner boards is what really will make it be able to easily be repaired if ever you need to be replaced again.
Yeah, like I said, it's just, I mean, in my opinion, it's not a great design because it allows water to get in.
Were they having problems with water intrusion?
Well, yeah, like all the outside corners needed to be pressed because they were all open and leaking, and there's no way to really put them back together once they've already lost their, start to cup
And those were probably original cupboards. So over 100 years old. So, and it was more, and you're not the owner, if I remember correctly, that house sold relatively recently, right? 2 or 3 years ago. So it was neglect that led to the damage that is now being addressed with material removal.
right.
So
And
I guess.
if I say one more thing,
Mhm.
what we're trying to do, instead of replacing a bunch of siding, is to cut the bad outside corners out and put corner boards in to
But
stay.
you can't replace with clapboards, so you can't,
You can, but it's the nature of how it's installed, lapping, overlapping, alternative lapping makes it very challenging and time consuming. So
I understand it's a proposition, but you know, the appearance of the building is changed dramatically by adding the corner boards and you know, certainly when we're talking about the siding being removed from the other sides and the reveal now being different from the reveal on the front.
I'm not sure what you mean by the reveal.
The exposure of the clapboard.
Okay, so the clapboard exposure hasn't changed. It's the same exposure that it was, because we just replaced what was there. So
Maybe it's the color, it's so radically different, and it's much thinner siding. The siding is really thin that's being put on, as opposed, the stuff the old stuff is really beefy. It's got a very heavy horizontal appearance.
well, a lot of the older siding is square edge,
Mhm.
and this has just a slight radius, so it gives it a softer look.
Right, which is again, changing the appearance of, you know, that is why, you know, if people are changing their materials, if they're not matching in kind. The
Well,
reveal.
I'm not sure if you can buy just square.
I think you can have whiteness,
This is where I bought the siding.
isn't it? I think you could have.
It might be a
custom
custom cut.
Yeah, and, you know, you did say it's complicated to piecemeal replace, but it's also complicated to take siding off a whole side of the building and replace it. So, I mean, I guess that's the kind of the thing we're struggling with too. Dave, do you have any questions?
I guess, you know, what you had just laid out, those are our options.
Jesse, any other? Bernie, do you have any questions?
I think I'm a little lost here in terms of what are the different options that we're discussing? Putting the vertical strips on.
This is generally the construction of the siding, minus the chimney chase here, which has all corner boards. Here are some historical pieces of the property where he's identified as having corner boards. And the reason the corner boards are being removed, according to the builder, are just that the exposed grain in the 100 years that it's been up there has been compromised. So it's no longer salvageable.
Okay, and the proposal is to put the corner boards on all of it.
He's actively in the process.
Yeah, we wish to carry these corner boards on all inside and outside corners of the house to be able to preserve most of the current siding.
I met with Jake last year when they were just wrapping up installing corner boards.
The siding, you've taken all the siding off.
Just what needed to be replaced. The siding that was split, and
It's the whole.
but that was what we replaced was no good. I mean, it was beyond repair. And it just happened to be that one side, just the worst side. There's a couple other spots down low on the east side that we've replaced. But the rest of it we intend to leave.
Meaning you're not going to be further applying corner boards or?
No, further replacing any original or siding.
Okay.
So just you can't just paint over it, you know?
Yeah.
So.
I guess I still don't quite, let me ask one more time. Is the plan, so on the existing corners that have the laced?
Yes,
mitered.
we would like to put,
And outside corners of the building.
yeah,
And for your process, that does not involve removal of all of the siding
no,
and.
no.
So you don't want to put the house wrapper in the whole front of the building the way you wrap the rest of the building?
No.
Okay.
And at this point, you expressed that the homeowner wishes to have the corner boards.
Yeah.
Is what you expressed to me.
Yeah.
That's part of your,
That's
the reasoning
what-
behind your
Yeah,
intention.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is the paint the same color in the pictures that you took?
No.
No,
No.
the house is like
Yeah.
sort of half painted, I guess. or-
Yeah.
It's blue now, that's the final color, right?
Yeah,
But the corner boards are a different color in this picture.
yeah, well, most of them are unpainted.
Okay.
As we install that, but I believe the color scheme would probably be a white. Corners.
That's what he's did on the front, it's white with blue, blue with white.
See, one of the reasons we're struggling with this is when we struggle with such a dramatic change with a building. Is because that sends a message to other people that changes like this are okay. It does take away from the historic character of the building by adding those corner boards. That building was not originally built with those. And you have chosen to do it to kind of deal with some maintenance issues. Pro or con, it has now changed the character of the appearance of the building. Anybody have any additional questions? Anybody wanna? So the siding's off all three sides of the rest of the house at this point, or two sides?
Sorry.
Siding is off of how many sides at this point?
There's really not any siding missing. The side that we took off last year, it's all been replaced with new siding.
And that is the side that faces 79 Beaver, the house to the right.
The back's been completely done.
Back and on the.
Portion of the east side and a portion now of the porch as well. It's on the east side. Porch has started to lose its siding as well.
The southern,
Some porch is east. Oh, that, the rear porch.
face of that, right?
So where is, I apologize because we have very limited context because this is.
Yeah.
Where are the corner boards going to be installed if we allow this to move forward?
It would be on all outside corners and inside corners.
So everywhere there's an angle.
Everywhere there's a name.
Are you thinking in terms of vision from the street and more where it's being seen and so forth?
Yes.
Right now, the ones on the front are, the corners on the front are intact.
It starts around at the bump out window.
No, it starts at the corner, the whole west side is done, has been replaced.
Including the northern and westernmost corner. Or is it kind of, isn't it kind of from that chase, from
Yeah,
Chimney
I think it's
Chase
from the
on
chimney
back?
chase.
Yeah.
The chimney chase was added by the Cosmers, I'm
Right.
pretty sure.
It's obvious. Yeah.
Just before I moved in.
It's not from the Chimney Chase on back, and then it's gone all the way around the house, and it comes back until the first wall of the sun porch.
Correct, and part of the sun porch.
And that's on the
back
drive,
corner,
the other driveway side, that's on
opposite side.
The back, the back.
Benton side of the, okay.
I mean, it's interesting to comment about the deep overhangs. Because, I mean, as you know, there are spots on that where the building kind of inexplicably comes out from underneath that overhang, and
The chimney chase does.
the sun porch does, and all of
That's
the
right.
window bump out,
Yeah.
the roof doesn't follow the.
Yeah,
I totally see how adding corner boards to, which has already been done on this building, you know, adding the corner boards to those bump outs totally changes it from a horizontal to a big, almost a column verticality, which would be the end of the world if you finished up where you were and stopped until the homeowner wanted to come in with an application and make a more detailed argument for the work that he would like to see done.
Yeah.
And does the paint accent the verticality, the paint having the not matching?
yeah.
They're doing white on dark blue.
Yeah.
I wonder if it'll be very, they kept it monotone, does that break down? I mean, it's not our purview to
Right.
design,
But that's,
but it helps to mask some of that.
You know, if they went dark blue the whole way and help.
Yeah. make it look like less like a pinstriped tower.
Yes,
So a little, just in a small area like that, that's gonna be a lot of full vertical lengths of
Mhm.
white,
Mhm.
dark and sleek.
Really, it's gonna change it dramatically.
If you pull out pictures of very style houses, they
Yeah.
have this
Yeah.
very strong horizontal.
Yeah.
And everything is meant to basically make it look low, close to the ground, and there's nothing vertical except the styles on window openings and door openings. The chimney thing is a disaster.
Right.
We won't talk about that.
Looks fine.
So, I mean, that
Looks like vinyl.
Yeah, it does.
well, the house was built when it was a real estate, when they had a central heating, and so the house had no fireplace. Certainly, it was meant, you know, anything, or if it had a fireplace, that fireplace was very carefully set up so that it didn't have a vertical element that intruded upon that horizontal appearance. Everything, you know, it's all designed with that very strong, you know, think of Roby, the Roby house in Chicago, something like that. That's really what they're emulating. And those designs are, they were, I mean, someone spent a lot of money on that to have it look the way it does.
Yeah.
Not your ordinary 4 square bungalow. And we don't have very much of that kind of, that period where someone's really making a statement. Most of the bungalows and things in 4 square we have in the village are very much, they're geared towards working class, lower middle class housing. You know, they're socioeconomically not what this house is. This house is a different building altogether. Beer Street used to be a lot fancier once upon a time, but if you are very examples of this.
Yeah. I just, Do we ask the homeowner to keep it monotone? Do we ask?
I don't know, as you say, you know, it's a, we're not supposed to design, we're
Right.
not supposed to comment on color.
We're not commenting on color as much as asking that the corner boards be masked as much as possible. That's the only other alternative I can think of other than
Well, I think at
stucking.
this point, you know. It's in a dumpster, it's in a landfill someplace now, so. Recreating that would be very expensive. Repairing it would have cost a lot less than replacing it. But but material is gone and it's old growth lumber, which means it's really gone. So.
Jason, what kind of compromise do you feel?
Well, I think that if the board, generally speaking, is not feel like they're in approval or would approve the replacement of every exterior and interior corner on the outside of the building with corner board, then it seems like the appropriate thing to do is to ask that this work stop happening. As Jess has expressed, it can't really be put back together.
This is the toothpaste is out of the tube.
Yeah. Humpty Dumpty's on the ground. But I mean, there's still a lot of architectural detail on the front of the house that if the homeowner or
The porch has been, we got an application for the porch to be rehabbed from a different contractor.
Yeah.
About 2 years ago, and the work that has been completed does not match what that approval was. It's all hardy plank. I'm not sure if it's hardy board or what's the
Did
other
you
one?
do the porch too?
Yeah.
So is it hardy board?
Porch floor is PVC.
The porch floor was approved to be a replacement, but not the rebuilding of the porch that was supposed to be done in lumber, and there should be an overhang. Floorboards are actually flush with. Yeah, it's, it looks like a subdivision. It doesn't match what was there, but the railing is still there, which is good. The railing remains, and columns are there, so it's kind of a mixed bag. So. I do know that the contractor who came in with the project initially does not have that match, because he's matched in other places in the village. So. But it's not matched, and it's not materials that were approved for the porch.
you expressed that you felt that the hardy plank was used somewhere, or
Yeah, it was approved, but not, and it's got the vinyl lattice.
the siding itself. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, porches do have, I know, we talked about this earlier today, when porches are. The line may be drawn in a different place. But. And the salient features of the porch remain: the overhanging roof, railing, the columns, although the front columns, which had rotted out because of the water falling in, have been replaced with something that's not quite right, but it's not awful. But we're sort of slipping around. I think.
Okay.
Is what I would say.
Yes. We should drill down on that for ourselves and our posture with the code that we're charged.
Yes.
As far as this property goes, so if the board's not comfortable with the replacement of the miter corners with a corner board, then it seems to me that we ask that the work to stop. For what has been done to date to be completed. We could certainly extend out to the homeowner and express the problems that the board has with it in the form of a decision. And ask, bring up the points of the horizontality being intended and that the color contrast, and just make note of the fact that the contrasting colors will really dramatically change the presentation of the house in the village.
That works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Jonathan.
If he's still adamant about it, he can make Jacob come back and continue the discussion.
Actually, is the homeowner vocal at all? No. Where?
You've got other work waiting on you. That's my, I don't want,
Yeah, there's other stuff that we're gonna do on our house and
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Is it exterior or interior?
A little bit of both, we're just fixing up the windows.
So would that require
Would
a
it be
permit?
like fixing up as in repairing or just replacing?
Repairing the house.
Because replacing, as you know from having listened to this evening,
Yeah, no.
that needs to come in, but
There's some-
repairing.
there's some skills and stuff that need to be fixed
And they'll be replaced with wood materials.
Yep.
I know you've got other work coming up and want you to feel comfortable bringing stuff before the board for a good discussion. And
Absolutely.
expect you to be coming in here for the next 50 years.
Yep.
How old are you? A lot younger than us, Jesse. Yeah, we appreciate your hearing us out, and Jackson will communicate with the homeowner. It really, it's not about you, it's about the law. It's about us, as I've said several times during this meeting, having to justify why we let this happen with this house to the next person who wants it to happen. And this is how the slippery slope snowball effect of chipping away at the historic character of the village happens. I have additional concerns when a homeowner isn't living in the village and engaged with the village too. And then kind of, they may not have as much ownership or investment in the significant investment so many other people, investment psychologically as well as monetarily, make in maintaining their historic properties. If this is a rental property, they're looking at it as a rental property. You're doing good work, fair work, in their mind, but they have to go the extra mile and understand that this is a historic preservation district, and there are certainly, hopefully that homeowner will not forget to come to HPAR again, or send you to HPAR again before the project starts, instead of having to stop and start it. It's really important for the sake of the village and the work everybody else has done to maintain the historic character.
And the historic designation. That is what's ultimately a threat.
And we have to be accountable to New York State for that. Literally, Jackson and I are working on the audit that we get to do. So, it's not just us sitting here, it's us reporting to the state historic office. So. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks, Jake.
Thanks.
Take care.
So what are we doing here? Still,
Maybe you don't know, I'm Jackson's building guy, I'm Chris.
Christabel, George Hymas' son,
okay.
hires down.
Paint for George occasionally when George didn't want to paint.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't want to paint these days.
Nice to meet you, Chris.
Nice to meet you.
At you for a long time, and I wouldn't have picked you out.
Good.
It's nice to meet you.
My disguise. Where can we meet? It's been a long night, so I don't want to keep you waiting. I just wanted to say hi and.
We'll see you next month.
Next month.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chris.
8:05.
I know, yeah. All the more reason why I want to. Free love.
Thank you for hanging in there.
Sure.
Yes.
It's DE space VILLE.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, man. I'll see you. Bye, guys.
I
Thanks.
think we're still.
I know,
Some minutes.
I'm not running out.
Thank you.
Lots.
So you can run away to Paris for the.
So that I can end the video.
Yeah.
We're live feeding it. So.
Yeah, before I forget, because I know everybody wants to get out of here, I'm asking everybody to complete this scan or get it back to Jackson. At your earliest convenience. Bernie, you get one anyway, even though you're new, but it's part of our historic preservation audit for New York State. So feel free to attach a resume if that's easier. Feel free to fill this out. Feel free to do whatever you choose. But we should give them something. It doesn't have to be this. But if this is easier, great. We, with 3 of us remaining, could approve if everybody was at the February meeting. We have a quorum still in terms of
Yeah.
present members.
That's good.
Okay,
Minutes remain high quality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Martha's doing a great job. Thank you, Martha. So vote to approve, Liz votes to approve the minutes.
David approved.
Okay, you can't because you weren't there. Thank you all for hanging in there tonight.
Meeting adjourned.
We will miss you. Have a great time.
Well,
Thank you for living up with Chris.
and I'll miss you as well, and.
Oh, no, you won't.
Yeah, Paris, Cooperstown, Paris, Cooperstown.
I'm going to be following along with Fox, so I'll be helping Chris.
In with us in spirit.
He's been following along for a good while.
At the Notre Dame and.
Yeah, one of the workshops is in Tour, the THOUARS, and. So
Where?
the workshops, the first workshop I'll be in is working on the quadrifoils and trefoils.
Okay.
So that's in the Loire Valley.
Okay.
And then the big timber work that's been being done, which there's, like, weekend before last, there was a big news, a bunch of news was released, but they built a whole workshop for it just south of Luxembourg.
Awesome.
So we'll be passing back and forth between the two and through Paris, but Paris is surprisingly real. It's like to be running big, huge, because those timbers for the tower.
Yeah.
It's very, very pretty place.
It's actually 30 minutes from a dear old friend of mine that I worked with for years and lived with for years. And now.
Do they have some mutuals too? Your empty bag. Thanks, everybody, and I'm sorry I was late and trying to